The message that I got was, don't get caught up in the story. Everything's perfectly fine. This was all part of the plan for your healing journey. Right? And that was what got me. It was pleasure. It was joy. It was that confirmation of this is something so much higher than me, a spirit higher than me.
Hi, and welcome to Don't Drink to Feed podcast. This podcast is all about you and all the courageous, driven women like you. We are here to inspire, to empower, to share, and to embrace one another. We will be talking with women from different backgrounds and careers about love, family, friendship, their wins and falls, and what it took for them to live the life they love. I am your host, Claudia Noriega-Bernstein, and I am so happy you're here today. Hi, everyone. I'm super excited because today my guest is Erin Henry. She's a trauma and attachment-focused therapist with more than 15 years of experience helping women heal, reconnect with themselves, and reclaim their voices. I can read a lot of stuff about her, and I can share a lot of things about her because she's a badass, and I met her a few months ago, and I actually saw her across the room. This is true. I saw her across the room, and I was like, I want to meet that woman. There was something about your energy, and I was like, I was a magnet. I need to meet her. And then when I heard her story and that she was writing a book, at that time she was writing a book. The book is already published, so you're going to have all the information. But when I heard about it, I'm like, and now I want to have her in the show because I think you are an example for a lot of women. And I want to welcome you, and I want you to share a little bit about your story.
Yeah, hi. Thanks so much. It's so fun to be here with you. I remember that moment too, because I saw you across the room and you had this amazing dress on. And I went up and I said, oh my God, you're just gorgeous. And you said, this is my daughter's dress. So here we are. Yeah. So yeah, I'm a therapist, basically become a women's therapist, a trauma clinician. I've been doing this work for going on 16 years. I just published my book last month called Reconstructed. It's a healing journey after breast cancer. So the book is really about my story of not the breast cancer journey, but really healing after breast cancer, because there's a lot out there on how to survive breast cancer. But when I was looking after the process for some resources, I couldn't find anything. And so I wrote the book that I needed about how to heal from the trauma. Yeah.
I know. But you also have a little bit of a story because your mom and your grandma both have cancer, right?
Yep. My mother died of ovarian cancer 21 years ago. And then my grandmother she survived breast cancer. And I don't even know how long ago because she never talked about it. So when I met you, we were at the retreat, right? And Amanda Hansen was doing this meditation on the lineage healing. It was the ancestral healing.
Yeah.
And that spoke to me because it was 3 generations of this cancer that had plagued the lineage.
Wow. Yeah. And in mine, I don't want to claim the cancer, but the one that I had, we were talking before the show, it was my neck, between my heart and my lungs and my uterus. So those 3 chakras were an evidence to me that there was something in me that needed to heal from my heart, from me not using my voice, and my wound. So cancer really happens for a reason, I think.
Yeah, I agree. And I think some people get offended with that, right? I think, and it's a bold statement to make, but the language I've been using recently has been cancer's been a transformational crisis, right? It's a crisis of transformation. And so for that, it was completely transformed my whole being.
And you believe that trauma lives in the body?
Yes, of course. Yeah.
I do believe that too, but can you explain that a little bit so people that are not understanding the concept, they can see what it means?
Right. So I differentiate a little bit between trauma and attachment. And so I write about this in the book. I do a lot from an attachment model also. And the way I can best describe this is my mentor, Dewey Freeman, who I write at length about in the book. He talks about attachment, early childhood attachment being the protective shield from trauma. And so attachment is what really forms our nervous system. It forms our sense of self. It forms our sense of self in relationship with others and the world, right? So that's the very foundation of who we are, comes from attachment, from our early childhood attachment. Right. And then trauma is there's like breast cancer itself is a trauma. So I can speak from that lens. And because the way I look at trauma is from a nervous system perspective. And
Right.
so it's when something scary happens and the body can't process, right?
Right.
So that lives in our bodies, lives in our nervous systems, lives in our brain, lives in our entire being. Yeah. So the healing then has to be body-based, somatic. So I'm sitting in this barn right now, right? Because I do equine therapy, which is
Right.
somatic, experiential, and works on that level. Yeah.
But you do different kind of therapy though, because when I went to your website, you have three different pillars kind of way. What's the difference and how do you know when you have your first interview with the
Mm,
client, where do you want to put that person? Because they might come to
yeah.
you for something. I always say, I hear what you want, I'm gonna give you what you need. So
Exactly.
how do you do that?
Right. So because I look at everything and everyone from an attachment lens, so that's always in my back pocket. So
Mhm.
that shows up in how people present themselves with what their current struggle is, relationship.
Mhm.
Typically, I know there's probably an attachment piece there. Most of us don't, most of us have attachment problems or
Right.
attachment issues on some level. I view it as a spectrum. So that's always in my back pocket. But typically, when people come to me, when I do part of trauma therapy is doing a good thorough history taking. And so I'll do a trauma timeline with all of my clients, really. And so
Hmm.
when we're doing that work, we're really kind of trying to see where there was some attachment disruptions or where there was some traumatic events, even if
Hmm.
people don't realize that it was trauma.
Right.
Because like what you're kind of suggesting, I think, is that most people come in and think, like, they'll say, I had a great childhood. And it's like, well,
Right.
you could have had a great childhood, and there's still you don't know what was happening in the lineage. You don't know what was happening with your parents' marriage, what was happening financially, if there's any immigration, if there's a divorce, if there's a death in the family, right? All
Hmm.
of those pieces could be impacting the
Yeah.
person. So
Yeah.
we do
And
it.
we
Yeah.
don't think about that. Like I
No.
was talking to a friend of mine the other day, and after my retreat, because she shared in the retreat that she has gone to therapy with her adult children. And she never
Mhm.
thought that the kid had any problems, right? I mean, you
Right,
had a
right,
great childhood. I mean, what do you have
right.
to complain about? And suddenly the adult
Mhm.
kids had this list of things. And
Mhm.
she was like, was I living in a different home? Because I never
Yeah,
saw that. And it's
yeah.
so true. We can have three kids, and the three kids have total different experiences.
Yeah. And I always tell people, because people bring that up regularly in therapy, right? It's like, what is going on with that? And I always
Hmm.
tell people hey, your parents are aging as we are growing up, right?
Hmm.
So parents are young, trying to figure it out too. And what happens with each child, like, it depends on what's happening within the family system and how prepared they might feel. Or, again, like if a parent loses a mother, a grandmother dies, or there's a divorce or a job change, all
Hmm.
of those things can impact how the parent then shows up,
Right.
depending on stress, right? Because back to the nervous system, so much of this is stress in the nervous system and how that impacts people.
Do you think that we lose a little bit our identity when we have trauma, our real identity?
I think we can, yeah. And the work I've been doing, so like you said, the three pillars on the website, one of them is a cancer specific. And I should
Hmm.
really probably call it medical trauma specific, because what I've started to differentiate is what medical trauma does or what cancer trauma does. And trauma that happens to your body versus even relational trauma, say assault of some sort. That to me is a identity crisis. That can be a transformational crisis,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because for me, going through trauma, the cancer trauma was one of the worst traumas I've ever experienced, because it was a literal attack on my body. So I
Hmm.
think of chemotherapy as a physical assault. I think of double mastectomy and reconstruction as a physical assault. And so with that trauma, there's a death that happens of the old self. Right. And
Right.
so then there becomes that the last phase that I talk about in my book is about identity reclamation, because there's this, when you can clear the trauma, then this kind of last stage of trauma recovery is reclaiming yourself in a different way, because you've done the grief work to realize that a part of you has died, or even life as you knew it is over.
Right. And I was going to ask you about that, the grieving part of not being that person anymore and grieving the person
Yeah.
that you used to be.
Right.
I mean, that has to
Yeah.
be a big component in the therapy that you offer, correct?
Yeah. Yeah. So I have in my kind of model that I've created, it's a 3 stages. And I based it on Judith Herman, who has the tri-phase model of trauma recovery, but I've kind of made it into more of a cancer trauma model. And so the first stage is what I call rebuilding a strong foundation, right? Because from that type of cancer, from that type of trauma, my body was wrecked. I had to rebuild strength. I had to rebuild my hormones, like you name it. Right. I had to rebuild. So there's always this rebuilding process first.
Right.
That's kind of a coming out of the survival too, because when you're in that type of experience, you're in a survival mode. So your nervous system's stuck on, or mine was stuck in a stress response. So that whole phase was just softening, relaxing, coming out of survival and being able to kind of function again.
Right.
Then the stage 2, I call it, is the reprocessing and grieving. And so that's doing this deep trauma work, the EMDR, the DBR, these type of trauma modalities that help to move that trauma through your system. And there's the grief, right? The grief kind of lives, the grief lives in the whole thing, but that's where you do the deep grief work. I mean, I spent hours sobbing on the floor, just crying, right? Just like,
why me? What this happened to me, and I'm never gonna be the same. And what am I gonna do with this body? And all
who's
of the
ever
questions.
gonna love me again? How am I gonna work again? Yes, the people who didn't show up for me, right? Like there's so much grief because people don't know how to show up. And I had my cancer during COVID. So there was a lot of isolation, and I was kind of trying to figure out, like, did people want to show up for me, or did they couldn't, right? So there's so much mind confusion that happens, right, too, to sort through.
Do you have kids?
No, I have a stepdaughter now.
Okay. So you didn't have to go through the explanation, that usually, like I had to sit down with my kids 3 times and tell them there is a chance I'm going to die. That was super hard for me. Yeah. Because although their dad was in their life, was on and off in their lives, I was the constant, right? So my daughter, Sophia, grew up with me being sick. So the positive was that they became very close because they knew that we only have each other because we don't know how long we're going to have mom. Right. But also another positive is that for some reason my kids don't feel scared about cancer because they have seen me survive it. So it's like somebody comes to them and say, I have cancer. They are like, oh, you're going to be fine. Because they don't think know. You're not. But also the negative is, thinking it can come back because it came back twice again. So it's difficult when you have little ones in your family. And I'm sure you talk to women in your practice that have children.
And I wasn't married to my husband when I had cancer. We had just met like 6 months before, really. But I was still close to his daughter. So we did have to talk. We had to have the conversation about, am I going to lose my hair? And what is chemotherapy? Those types of conversations. That was really confusing. But, I never thought I was going to die. I always knew I was going to be okay, which is interesting because my mother died, right? So my experience with cancer was that I was going to die. But there was something inside of me that knew, like, this isn't going to kill me. I knew it wasn't going to kill me. I knew it was going to teach me something.
I love that. Yeah. And what did it teach you?
That's what I wrote. That's what I wrote a book about. Right? So much. I mean, it's so hard to even put that into a statement, but
I'm sure it also teach you how much courage you do have.
For sure.
Because we don't know until we know.
Right. Yeah. And I knew I was strong, right? I knew I was strong. I think what it taught me really was I hadn't quite dealt with the grief and trauma from my mother's cancer. It was a confrontation for me of, you don't get to avoid this anymore. Right. So like, you can't run from cancer. There's no running.
No, you can't.
And I was a runner. I was an avoider. I tried to do all kinds of things to escape all the time. And so once this was in my face and I'm in a chemo chair strapped to a port with an IV in with chemical, like, you can't leave. And you can't leave from the double mastectomy. You can't leave anything. So it was a full, like, just force of, you have to now look at this. There's no choice but to face.
I knew I wasn't, it's not that I knew I wasn't going to die. I just said to the doctor, this is not going to kill me because I don't want anybody raising my kids, period. So that was my thing. I don't know what your prognostic is, but don't even tell me because I don't care, because I know that whatever it takes, I'm going to overcome this. And I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, that your state of mind plays a huge role in the recovering, right?
Huge. Yeah. And I talk in my book a lot about this. I got myself a Peloton, right? I was like 2 chemo rounds deep and I thought, I'm going to get a Peloton. So I bought a Peloton, which is silly and awesome at the same time. And I found this coach in there, Robin Arzone. She's like my favorite Peloton instructor. And I write about her in my book because she is this, I got on the bike, I found her class, and one of the first things she said was self-pity is poison. And I remember riding this bike, like I wasn't in the best of shape. I had been 2 rounds into chemotherapy. I had been like a hiker, but I was never like an everyday go to the gym person. And I got on that bike and she was like, self-pity is poison. And I'm like, okay, cool. And then she just started just saying these mindset pieces. And
I love
every
that.
time I heard her say self-pity is poison, she's like, you have a choice to collapse or to pivot. You woke up today. People are worse than you are in different situations. So every day I got on my bike to hear more of her mindset. And that was what really rewired my brain. It was the constant, like, don't go there. Nope, we're not going there either. I can move my body. Like, this is a privilege. I'm going to survive. This could have been worse, right? And I had to sit with that every single day and practice. And I think like it's interesting because I've never met her. She's on the Peloton screen, but it was like during COVID lockdown.
But
She
she's
was,
a real person. I mean, I
she's,
don't know her, so she's not an
yeah,
AI person. She's a real
no,
person.
no. Like I'm going to go ride with her in the studio in October. I sent her a copy of my book. She
I
invited me to
love
come
that.
ride.
She
Yeah,
should be paying you royalty.
I know. I totally am. But I think that there's something, it's so funny because I like, again, I'd never met her. I will one day in a few months, but like that, the power of someone just saying those things over and over again, right? It's like I needed to hear that because I was so isolated that she was like the cheerleader I had every day. And I just log onto my Peloton and hear more.
Right, you
And I,
become addicted to that. And that is so true. You can
yes,
get addicted to the
yes,
negative,
yes,
information junk that we get outside of our world, or
yes,
you can
yes,
choose to get addicted to somebody that is going to make you feel like I'm
yes,
addicted to Brené Brown. Like I can hear and
yes,
listen to her any day of the week and I'm fine. And I don't care if I already saw the video, I'm going to watch it again. And I know how it's going to finish, but I'm enjoying it,
yes,
because I
correct.
need that food for my brain. And
Yes,
I'm in the mastermind with Dr. Amanda, and
right.
we were talking about the ways that we bring ourselves up. And I'm like, music is to me. And it's
Oh,
not that I'm
yes.
putting a band-aid in my emotions. Like I feel my emotion, I will cry and whatever, but then I go, enough of this. Okay, I process this. Now, enough of this. Now I
Yes.
am going to get my dopamine high and we
Yes.
get to be resourceful. We get to look for
Yes.
things that work for us. So I'm putting that music and I'm dancing with my dogs and I'm enjoying myself and looking at myself in the mirror and loving myself.
Totally.
And I'm like shameless, but at the same time, I am helping myself, and we all have that capacity to mother
Yes.
ourselves and to make our day better. I mean, you are
Yes.
not making your day better because you just don't want to. Circumstances are going to happen every day, and you're going to have problems, and you're going to get fired, and you're going to get deaths in the family, and ugly things are going to happen, and somebody's going to bump your car or whatever it is. But you have the choice every day to
Yep.
celebrate something that happens for you, or you have the choice to pay attention to what is working instead of just be depressed about every single thing that doesn't work in your life. And I say this to my daughters all the time. It's a choice. Happiness is a choice.
That's what I learned. I think if anything, that's what I learned. And I also think that trauma can block you, right? So there is, and this is where I get into the trauma work. I've been doing deep brain reorienting. It's a newer trauma modality. The research is incredible on showing the efficacy of this new modality.
Tell
But
me again, what is it called?
it's called deep brain reorienting.
Oh, wow.
DBR. The EMDR has kind of been the standard go-to for a decade or probably 2 decades by now.
Mm-hmm.
DBR is kind of swooping in, and it's a lot of the EMDR people have been actually the guy who created DBR was an EMDR guy.
Okay.
So it's kind of coming in out of that. But it works on what they call the shock alarm pathway. So it's dealing with deeper in the brain than EMDR works, deeper below the limbic system. And so it's actually dealing with the shock. And so when you can clear the shock out of a system, then you can actually help build capacity and stop reactions, right? So it kind of slows down the reaction, the
The
reactivity
trigger.
of the nervous system. Exactly.
Okay.
So what I've learned with that work is that there's like, I kind of have always viewed it as trauma on one side, if it's a spectrum or a polarity, trauma's on one end and pleasure's on the other, right? And the more trauma you've experienced, the harder pleasure is to access. So I do believe that happiness is a choice. And I also believe that for some people, it's hard to access. So that's where I love the trauma work, because if we can get in there and help the nervous system to heal, the ability to access pleasure becomes, it's easier to access when you've cleared some of that stuff.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. But what did you notice? Like, why for some people it's harder to access that than for others?
I think because of trauma.
It's
All
kind
the
of like a
time.
vicious circle, right? Because it's because of the trauma, then you don't access, and then if you access,
Yeah.
you go to the traumas.
Yeah. And so that's why in really good trauma therapy, they'll help what they call resource. There's resourcing components, and that's being able to access positive states. So even in EMDR, that's one of the phases of treatment, right? Is we're trying to build positive states, because we know that people with extreme complex trauma have a really hard time accessing positive states. Or sometimes a positive state is dangerous or unsafe. And so part of really good trauma therapy will be to help build capacity to access pleasure and feel good states.
And I mean, obviously you have a lot of knowledge about trauma and all that stuff, but when you are going through it, did you reach out for therapy for yourself, or you just try to work on your own?
No, I had a therapist the whole time. Okay. Yeah, so I had a therapist that got me through treatment, and she was virtual, obviously, because it was COVID. She was amazing. She was so incredibly helpful. She is how I got through treatment, right? It was just having her every week. And then once I finished treatment, I realized I had PTSD, and I did a neurofeedback session just to map my brain. And so I had a traumatic brain injury from the chemo, and I had PTSD. So that was diagnosed in my brain, which I didn't even think about, right? Even though I'm a trauma clinician, I've been doing this for 16 years. I just hadn't thought about it much, right? So once I got the diagnosis of PTSD and TBI, then I sought out a trauma clinician to do very specific trauma work.
Right.
So, and then it was through that process that then led me to Dr. Amanda. So she was actually where I found pleasure. Again, was that, plus I did some psilocybin, because we have psilocybin's legal in Colorado. So those are the pieces that kind of led me towards pleasure, but it was the trauma work that I really had to focus on for a chunk of time so I could clear all of that before I got to pleasure.
How is that different? The silly, whatever name that you said. How's the difference between that and, let's say, ayahuasca?
They're totally different compounds. They're totally different substances. Yeah.
So one is more guided, right? The one that you're talking about. Like when you take it, because I have never taken that. I have done ayahuasca, but I have never taken that.
Psilocybin?
Yeah. So if somebody's not familiar with it, what it does?
Yeah. I mean, it's a hallucinogenic. So in Colorado, there's therapists who will journey with people. So like in ayahuasca, they have journeys, right? You go sit with a shaman and they do ceremony. Same thing with psilocybin. They have therapists who are now trained specifically to work with psilocybin, and it helps you, it helps you to process everything. So it depends on, there's different dosages. I think I did 1.5 grams when I did my journey. They all do up to 3 to 4 grams, depending on the person and the practitioner. And they set an intention like you would with ayahuasca, right? Like there's a whole ceremony and intention that's involved. And then you journey, and then you have integration sessions, because a lot of times stuff comes up for people. So
did they come up because somebody is asking you, or because you just in this trance that you start talking and somebody's taking notes?
You just start talking. And I think it depends again on the practitioner and what the client's looking for, right? I was out in nature. I just took myself out in nature to my favorite camping spot and took the medicine, because I knew I had enough friends in the field to understand how to work with it.
But you were not by yourself. You were
with my husband.
Oh, okay. Because like I would have fear of, because I don't know the drug, so I would have fear of, what if I jump in the lake, or what if I do something that is crazy and nobody's gonna stop me?
Yeah, you don't want to do it alone. No, you need a guide. Always have a guide. Yeah. Yeah, and my husband works in that field. He's a attorney who works with plant medicine doctors, so he's very familiar. Yeah, so he knew what he was doing, and I talked to many friends on how to set this up. But I didn't, because I had done so much trauma work, I didn't really have trauma memories come up. I just had joy. I just saw God everywhere. It
Mm.
was like the trees were alive and the canyon was alive and everything made sense to me. And the message that I got was, don't get caught up in the story. Everything's perfectly fine. This was all part of the plan for your healing journey.
Wow.
And that was what got me. It was like, it was pleasure, it was joy, it was that confirmation of this is something so much higher than
Mm-hmm.
me, a spirit higher than me, a higher part, right?
Like
That's
a higher power is here with me.
yeah, yeah,
Everybody was like, I mean, of course, you throw up and all that stuff. And I did
yeah.
it the first time. I did it 5 days in a row. So
Wow.
I went to a retreat and I did it 5 days in a row. It was a whole thing with,
Wow.
yoga in the morning, then colon cleanser, then therapy. Then like I was
Yep.
a moment in my life that I really needed to make some decisions. And
Yeah.
I didn't want to make those decisions with that baggage. I wanted to clear my canvas and say, hey, I need a
Beautiful.
blank one.
Beautiful.
So I need to make a decision like that. And I
Yeah.
think that for the same reason, I had a really good trip. I threw up, but then after that, I mean, other people were in the room with me and they were like, you slept the whole freaking time. And I was holding the toilet for 7 hours, and I was like,
Mm,
I didn't because I had work on myself. So a lot of the deep,
yeah.
deep trauma that I had in my soul, it wasn't that deep anymore. So it was easier
Right.
to access, you
Yeah.
know?
You could purge it. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
totally.
And that's what I did. I
Cool.
mean, I remember the first night I'm laying down there and, I drank that disgusting thing. And it's disgusting. And then I close and they say, okay, now lay down. And they have like, we were like 50 of us, okay? So in a big room. So we're laying down there and the shaman says, okay, now close your eyes and just start feeling the plant talking to you. And then I hear,
Yeah.
are you Claudia? And I'm like, what? Who's he?
I
I'm
love
going,
it.
yes, it's me. Work on me. Work on me. It was
Cool.
pretty cool for me. And my
Yep.
body, they give you a body. She was next to me. And this woman will get up in the morning and because you're like so many hours there, right? So you go there when it's
Right.
night and then it's day. And she was like, I hate you. Every time I will get up to go to the bathroom, you're sound asleep and you're laying down there. And I'm like,
Yeah.
but that is just the work that I have been doing. I've been working on myself since I was 30
That.
years old. I'm 59. That's a lot of
Yep.
years. And
See,
I
and that's kind of what I think. It's like I think when people take plant medicine or psychedelics for like a quick fix, it's not fun. But if
no,
you have done your work and it fits because it calls to you as part of your journey, right? Then it's a really cool piece to put in there. But I think
yeah,
when people go in with this intention of like, this is going to heal me, it's like, "Oof,
it's
that'll
not.
blow
There
your,
is no
it's
fast
not,
fix.
no. And
No.
people come to me, now I've cleaned up some psychedelic messes with clients, because they've done
Hmm.
that work and then it's like blows things out, right? And so then we have to come in and do the work
Right.
because
Now
you
it's
can't
showing up.
just
So let's talk about it. And then they didn't want to talk
exactly
about it before, right? Because they were okay.
right. The mush,
It's crazy.
yeah,
I haven't tried a lot of stuff. I mean, I have like I smoke pot. I mean, very open about it, but not during the day because I have to be cohesive. But at night I'll do it. Not, I'd rather do that than taking a pill to go to sleep anyway. But like mushroom and different things, I haven't done it. And one of the reasons was because I am a freaking controller, so I don't. I need to be aware, and then that's another trauma response, right? To be in
right,
control.
right.
So when a friend of mine told me that she had gone to Costa Rica to do ayahuasca. I asked her a million questions. I was the FBI. I needed to put the light on that person and say, okay, now answer all my questions. Okay. I need the truth. And she said to me, you are going to have to let go of your control because you're going to have to surrender. And I go, to whom? That was my
Right.
question. To whom? And
Mm,
she said, to yourself. That was
mm,
such an aha moment for me
mm,
because when you're in control, right? You
right.
don't allow nothing, your body gets hard. And she's like, you gotta surrender to yourself. And I was like,
Yeah.
I can do that. I know. I don't know how long, but I can do that. And I remember the first night because you stop eating like at 3 in the afternoon and then you go to I don't remember the name. They have a name for this place where you take it. Uh, and we start at 6 and then it was 4 in the morning, and I'm like, wait, what? How did all this time went by?
Mm,
And I didn't even notice it,
wow.
but I had memory of my trip. And I
Right.
was, okay, this is what the plant said to me this time, and this is what the plant was trying to teach me this time. And okay, and then it's just go to your room and journal as much
Yeah.
as you can. And I have
Yeah.
never really looked at that journal now that I think about it, but so important to let it all out, right?
For sure. Yeah. I think when you're called to that work, right? Like you're called to it. And I think the certain play, like I'm not called to ayahuasca at all. But psilocybin, I was called to. So I think it's just like it's that, right? You're called
Right.
to this medicine. And not it's not for everyone. Like my mushrooms are not for everyone. Ayahuasca, not for everyone, right? But it's like
Right.
if it's a part of your path, you'll know it because you'll feel that call. Because there's something that those plants, they're entities, they're live beings, and they have something to teach us.
Exactly. They're like little helpers.
Little helpers. And
Yeah.
mushrooms are the little helpers. They're just these little helpers. And now I microdose. Microdose is a really big thing in Colorado. So you just take a little, right? And it's actually a serotonin booster. So
Uh-huh.
I'll do it maybe once a week, every 2 weeks, and just
The
have a little
mushroom.
tiny, just a little
Mhm.
microdose. Yeah. And it helps because it helps to boost serotonin.
And it
And
takes the
so
edge, right?
it takes the edge off. Yeah. And so you don't do enough to see things or hallucinate, but just enough. But even when I do just a little microdose, I can still get that little message, where the teachers keep telling me, you're not in control, human. Sit down, take a breath,
And
right?
listen.
There's a divine plan here. And so I'll kind of know when I get edgy that it's time for a little microdose. Not a big dose. I don't like to do the big doses as much, but I like the little microdoses just to remind me of like,
Right.
there's something so much bigger here. It's okay. Take a breath, slow down. You're on your path.
And now going a little back to the therapy that you practice, you also do it with, I mean, you do it with horses too. So that is
Yeah.
like the last stage of it. And I have done it. Huh? I have done the,
You, equine?
yes, I loved it.
Yeah.
I have a thing with horses. I was
Yeah.
almost killed by a horse when I was very young.
Oh,
I
no.
used to work on soap operas many years ago, and I was doing a scene with a horse, and they didn't want the horse to have the, how you say that, the chair, the whatever they put
The
on top,
saddle?
the saddle. So I was just sitting there like an Amazon, and then somebody went in the butt of the horse, and the horse took off with me on top.
Yeah.
And when a horse takes off,
Yeah. Scary.
they don't stop until they want to stop. So yeah, I end up bruised all around my
Mm.
thighs and everywhere because I was like a cartoon flying up and
Yeah.
down.
Yeah.
And I panic. I remember I
Mm.
panicked at the beginning and I was
Mm.
holding on to the neck of the horse for
Mm.
my life. And then I start becoming the same movement with the
Yeah.
horse.
That's it.
I
That's
get
it.
the rhythm of the horse. I
That's it.
stopped strangling the horse
Mm.
and I said to him, please stop. Please stop. Like soft.
Yeah. That's
And the
it.
horse stopped like a cartoon, like
Yep.
stop. I got off and then I turned around and the whole crew was running behind the horse. Like she's gonna get killed and we're gonna get sued. And I got off the horse. Don't ask me
Wow.
how, because I kind of jumped out. There was
Sure.
nobody there to hold me, and the horse took off
Mm.
again. Like it stopped just to allow me
That's
to get
yeah.
off.
And that's what they do. They respond to your nervous system. So
And until I wasn't
when you were
regulated,
and when you were finally got in sync and said, please stop, and you softened, right? That was enough to send him the signal of like, she wants to stop. Okay, we're stopping now.
yeah, yeah,
That
it
is
was
what we teach, and
incredible.
that's a lot of equine therapy right there, right?
Yeah.
Is that dynamic and the reflection, the nervous system mirroring, right? And how they teach us a lot about our nervous systems and how we show up in the world, as you probably
And to
know from
surrender
your work.
again. Yeah, it
Yes.
was a huge lesson. I did it.
Yes.
I did it in
Yes.
Colorado with Cami. I don't know if you know her, but
Cool.
she did a training with her, and then part of the training was doing this. And I remember going, and actually Destiny was her horse, and she passed away last year. And I felt so blessed that I had the opportunity to work with her.
Mm.
And she chose me because there were two horses there and we were two women, right? And I just started walking and she started coming around. And I'm like, okay, so you choose me. And that
Yeah.
another trauma for me not to be chosen, right? So why is the brown one not choosing me? Right?
Exactly.
She chose me and we were doing all these exercises when I was just walking and she was walking next to me, but I was guiding her
Mm.
without guiding her and she was
Yeah.
allowing me. I wasn't forcing it. And that was
It's-
such an aha moment for me because my dad used to say to me, don't try to hammer a screw. The screws
Mm.
are not meant to be hammered. You
Right.
gotta turn it little
Yep.
by little. Because if
Yep.
you try to hammer a screw, you're gonna break the wood.
Yep.
And in that moment that I was with the horse, I'm thinking,
Mm,
I'm not going to force it. I'm going to allow to go and flow and match her rhythm. It was beautiful. It
isn't
was
that
really
cool?
beautiful.
Yeah. It's
And every time
beautiful
I was
work.
talking something difficult, she would move and she would
Shake it
shake the
off.
hair and
Yeah.
shake the tail. And I'm like,
Yeah.
are we doing okay?
She's helping you process. And
Yeah,
that's why that's such cool nervous system work because they help, right? Like sometimes doing trauma work is too intense for people. Maybe they're not there yet, right?
yeah,
Equine therapy is a wonderful place to start in the beginning on the
yeah,
front end of accessing that pleasure, accessing that again, accessing positive states again, right? Because horses can hold your nervous system when you're experiencing it distress.
right.
So they
They
really
feel
help.
you. You
They
cannot fool, you cannot fool, everybody
no,
says you cannot fool
no.
a dog or a horse, but I think dogs can be a little, you can manipulate them a little bit. Okay, you give him a treat and the horse and the dog is
Right,
gonna
that's
go, I
true.
love you. A horse is not like that.
No, they're not.
If the horse doesn't want to follow you, that he's 300 pounds, he's not
Not
going
gonna do
to
it.
do what you want.
Right.
He's gonna do what you need in that moment.
Yes, exactly. That's it. Yeah, cool work. It's really cool work. So that was part of my journey too. Yeah, I did some equine for sure.
And you talk
Yeah.
about this in the book too?
Yeah. I mean, I think part of my healing was the fact that after I finished treatment, I started working with equine. I started doing equine therapy. So I
Mm.
spend 2 days a week. And back then it may have been more. I'm spending 2 to 3 days a week at a ranch with horses. So my system was
Wow.
getting healed as I was working, just being among the herd.
So you didn't do this horse thing or didn't have a ranch your whole life. This was a result of you trying this kind of therapy, loving this kind of therapy, and then getting a horse?
Well, my mentor, I started learning from him probably 10, 12 years ago now. He always
Mm-hmm.
had horses. So I started training with him a long time ago, but it just took me, it wasn't until after I finished treatment that I finished training to become certified. Because you have to be
Okay.
certified. It takes kind of a lot of schooling and
Mm-hmm.
training to be able to work with people and giant creatures. So that took some time. And then it was after treatment, I actually got certified to work with them. And I'm at my friend's ranch right now. I don't have horses. I work out of my friend's space
Okay.
twice a week. Yeah. I got really lucky and have a beautiful friend who allows me to. She has a whole
Yeah.
practice where she's a therapist too. So there's a few of us that work out of this barn with a herd
Oh,
of 9.
I love that.
So
Tell me what people can get out of the book.
yeah. I mean, the feedback I've been getting is really good. I thought I was writing it for breast cancer survivors, and most of the feedback I've gotten is that this is a book for anyone who's into transformation and wants to kind of learning how to heal. Because I have my 3-phase model, and then I have what I call my 9 M's. And so there's a framework that talks about mindset, mindfulness, movement, right?
Mm-hmm.
Dancing is one of them too, movement.
Mm-hmm.
So I think people say it's an inspirational story. And then it's also it does provide a bit of a framework for if you feel like you're kind of stuck or you feel like you've been through something and you're kind of stuck and don't know what to do, right? There's a nice storyline with some tips to kind of guide you through. And I don't say it's my path is anyone else's path, right? Like my journey is not everyone's journey, but I think it's applicable enough to people who are just kind of on the struggle bus or wanting to maybe even get into a spiritual practice or find some self-actualize, right? Like really make meaning of life.
Right. And they don't know what direction to take.
Yeah. So it's a roadmap. And I
Yeah.
literally have a map in there. So it's a roadmap.
I love that.
Yeah.
If you want to go from point A to point B.
Well, I layer the story with right before I got cancer. I did a Himalaya trek in Nepal. So I kind of tell this tale of that story, the Annapurna Circuit trek, where I was hiking up to like 18,000 feet. And I learned a lot from that and I apply that to the cancer journey. Right. So just the
Mm.
struggle, and I call it the false summit because when you're hiking, there's this idea of the false summit where you think you reach the top and you climb all day and you go, oh my gosh, I think I'm there. And then
There's
you go,
another
ah,
one.
shit, I'm not. So I describe cancer, and there's a false summit on the trek in Nepal that I wrote about during cancer treatment. What I thought that ringing the bell and chemo being done and everything being over was the end, but I call
Right.
it a false summit because it's really not the end of the journey at all. It's actually the beginning of healing.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Is the beginning that you were
Yeah.
in escrow for a period of time.
Yes. And they don't talk about that enough,
Yeah.
right? They talk about survivorship, but they don't talk about like you can stop surviving, you can thrive. I don't even like thriving, right? It's like you can create a new you can transform, might be a better word, right? Because if you look at it as a transformational crisis or a transformational journey, then you actually can become a different version of you if you want to.
Were you always like you are right now? Like when I met you, you come across like very together, like very secure of yourself. Like I know what I want. I have my policies. I'm not shrinking to
Yeah.
fit kind of thing. Were
Yeah,
you
yeah.
always like that?
Yeah. I don't, I think I could present well. I think I've always been a good masker. And I think I've
Mm,
always been tough, right? Like I survived a lot. My mother died when I was young and I had to help. So there's a lot of that. But I think it was deep down that I was struggling. The deep down I was avoiding, right? So there was insecurity, even though
right.
I could fake it and mask it really well.
Mm,
Deep in there was that avoidant piece. So that's that lineage healing piece. I really
mm,
had to face the grief and the mother wound and all of that work. So now I feel like I'm a fully embodied confidence. Like I don't have that deep insecurity. And if I do, I'll see
right.
it and kind of like, okay, cute,
You
you know.
recognize it. You're like, you don't want to go there. We know what
No,
there is.
we know what that is, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
just an old pattern, like an old trail that I don't have to go down. So I'm much more embodied. I think I'm a deeper person, but I've always kind of been tough and brave and powerful.
You are powerful. Yes, you are.
Mhm.
Where can they get the book?
Anywhere. You can get Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, all the places. So I got it on all the platforms.
I love the picture in the cover. I love the picture in the
Yes.
cover.
So that was me. That was me facing the mountains when like I did that picture maybe 2 days before I started treatment. And I had to show my boobs one last time to the mountains.
Before they take him away.
I
Mm.
did. And then behind that is the Nepal mountains that I trekked up.
Hmm.
So I had them overlay those pictures. But yeah.
Wow. So anyway, I am so happy that we finally got to do this. We've been planning this for a minute already, and I'm very honored to have you because I do admire you and I admire your journey. And do you want to add anything? Tell them again the name of your book.
Reconstructed. Reconstructed, a healing journey after breast cancer.
Yes, we did. So if
Yeah.
somebody is going through a moment where they are a little lost in their life, you don't have to have cancer to feel that way. There is a lot of things that
No.
can happen for us, but we don't recognize it as for us in that moment.
Right.
Pick up the book and read
Yeah.
it and give her a good review because that's
That
what makes the book more popular.
true.
Yeah.
All
Erin,
the
thank you
reviews,
so,
all
so
the
much. All the
reviews.
reviews. Yes. And you have it in ebook too, right?
It's an ebook too. Yeah. I
Okay.
think on Kindle Unlimited, it doesn't even cost anything.
Okay, perfect. Mine
So
is like that too. And if not, I think
yeah,
it's 99 cents. And I left it there.
yeah.
They told me do a promotion. I'm like, no, you know what? I want everybody to read it. So why
I just
not?
want people to read it.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. All right,
Cool.
guys. Thank you so much for listening. Again, if you want to be part of my newsletter, subscribe. The link is in the bottom in the description of the show. And I always talk a little more about the episode, the takeaways, and a little more about my guests. So please subscribe and go buy the book.
Yes.
There you go. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you all for listening to the Don't Shrink to Fit podcast. If you like this episode, please write a juicy comment below and subscribe to my podcast. Remember, we can only fly if we embrace each other. Until next week, be happy, be safe, and be kind to yourself.